Oh, she did. Yeah, no, it's all right. I mean, I was curious about what you guys think about the OJ thing because I think she was like the first.
I think
one.
he's innocent. I think he's innocent.
All right, we can still talk. About it. Yeah, we'll still talk. We'll still talk about it.
I think he's innocent because he's hot. All right.
That's a good measure.
Yeah, I think he's innocent because he's hot.
Okay, sure. So I'm at Slavoid T.
All right, this is Shit Spouter 37.
This is Black.com build.
This is the Fed Post.
Yeah, I think he's innocent because he's hot.
Okay, sure.
fair.
I mean, that's a sound legal system right there.
Yes, I think hot people can get away with a lot of shit. You know,
Hot
just,
rights. Yeah. Hot
yeah,
people rights.
just stay hot. You know.
Do you think hot rights are under attack? Because I think Alex said that. Alex said that once. They were like, they're under attack. I'm like, damn. I never thought about that. Another protected community.
It really makes you think.
With the whole like body positivity movement, I feel like it's overreaction to something that was actually a real issue. Like I was growing up and, you know, a lot of people were like having eating disorders because there was a certain body type that was being promoted. So I feel like it's going to swing back. It's not going to always be like, you know, just be 400 pounds and you're going to be healthy, no diabetes, nothing like that. You don't
think we'll get new beauty standards of like Victorian shit of just like super overweight? That's like what's hot. You don't think?
But it's always like
more robust women,
childbearing hips. Okay, where are you going to
Well, let's be real. The thick thing was recent. That was recent. Before in the 2000s, it was only like super skinny, anorexic, which I was never into. And then,
but I think everybody got
thick.
into hip hop culture.
Right,
So
exactly.
you know.
Yeah.
Actually, I remember like getting shit in high school for being like, oh, a little thickness going on. There's nothing wrong with that. And then it fucking comes back around, and I feel resentment about this.
You were like special back then, and now you're like everybody.
I tried to come out of the closet as pro thick, and I was oppressed by it.
But there's a huge difference between thick and whatever the fuck they're putting on the cover of like magazines right now.
Like Lizzo.
Did you guys see that picture of Lizzo and there's Middle East, like ruined Middle East and Lizzo on top,
No way. Wait,
Americana Inc. Like that's the way we promote American values, right? Like we're like, there's a new civil rights issue and like those brown people in poor countries are not fully on board. We're just going to bomb them and like bomb their weddings and stuff.
Oh my God.
Right. Yeah. I don't know. Like the bombers that have like Lizzo dancing on it. There's like a Mrs. Potato Head dropping bombs on somebody.
Yeah. It's like there's going to be a new civil rights issue every fucking year because we're a society obsessed with individualism and like gays are married and normal right now. So like the crazier your new like sexual kink is, like the more you think you're special, Well,
okay. What do you think of that? Because I mean, we talked about body fascism for a little bit, but like the body positivity thing, that is very, very forced. And
it's actually like, if we're really talking about Corona or whatever, like if we were serious about it, we would like send people to the gym, and just say like, listen, if you're obese, you have a real issue. Because like, for example, if you look at Japan and South Korea, like South Korea tested in the beginning, they were testing heavily. And then they were like, oh, this is not really deadly because they're all skinny and they're all healthy. Same thing with Japan. Like Japan never locked down. Japan never tested that much. And they handled Corona pretty well. They didn't have no excess mortality. And you were like, why? I mean, America did have some excess mortality, but we're fat. We're country.
Yeah. That's a secondary condition because if you have that, then your likelihood of dying from COVID or from anything, even the regular flus, just up. It's weird that to believe the science thing for COVID, but then not for. But then I'd hear things like, oh, obesity doesn't have any correlation with your health. I'm like, that doesn't make any fucking sense.
Well, that's the science now, CRK. So if you just like switch the science around, you have to believe that too.
Well,
Like,
this
I
my
Scientific American article about that shit that was like, well, actually, like, here's some myths
Really?
about obesity. Yeah, I'll try to look it up and see exactly.
one
what
of
it
my
is.
favorite things is the what is it? It's like no, like you don't get hypertension from like being overweight. You get hypertension because when you go to the doctor, they don't like give you treatment for hypertension. They just tell you to lose weight.
They dead
And,
name
like,
you, and it's
Which
Doctors are even-
again, like I think it's really just people like extrapolating way too much from the fact that like, yeah, like I would imagine it sucks to go to the doctor and have someone be like, yeah, so like awkward, but like you're too fat and you need to not be, right? But like that doesn't mean like that's not like a structural impediment or anything like that. That's just like an uncomfortable thing that you you went through.
If you're living the wrong way, you need to change the way that you live. And if someone who's professional and they study that is telling you that clinically, because you paid them to do that.
But doctors are even afraid to say that to their patients. Like if you talk to, like I have friends who are doctors and they're like, we can't even tell people that they're fat because, you know, that's going to upset them. And
Yeah, I'm looking at this article right now from Scientific American, and it says, fat is not the problem, fat stigma is. And it says here that it turns out that it's not fat that's an issue. It's the fat phobia, being shaved for being sized bigger and being less likely to get hired promotions or having social success.
the phobia right now. Like I'm not afraid of Rebel Wilson. I think she's hilarious. I think she's a queen, you know, like I'm not afraid of her. It's not phobia, you know? And do you guys remember when she lost weight? People were like, oh my God, she's doing bad things for fat people. I'm like, she's living her best life. She looks amazing. She's hilarious as fuck. And just, you know,
No, she's doing self-harm. That's self-harm, losing weight.
She needs to be as fat and miserable as I am. God damn it.
But that's how you know it's a lip pandemic, because like if people were serious about corona, they would just tell everybody to fucking go to the gym, keep the gyms open, and the actual like transmission rate in the gym is like very low because everybody wears fucking masks, everybody's fucking healthy, and you know they were not telling people that just stay home, order Uber Eats all day, smoke weed. And then
Yeah, I was just at the gym and libs at my office are always shocked. They're like, whoa, you go to the gym? Are you serious? Like they're always like, wait, you're not vaccinated? Like they're always tripping out like if it's a big deal. Like it's not a big deal. I've been there for like months and it's nothing. I haven't been sick, nothing. It doesn't matter. Like, yeah, there's masks and all that shit. Like, I don't know. It's a big joke, but like, yeah, they're like discouraging you from going until you've been like, you know, fully vaccinated or whatever.
I had corona early on in pandemic. I had corona in like March of 2020. And I remember at that point, I thought it was like a basically airborne Ebola. Like I was going to die. I called my mom. I was like, I love you. And, you know, like my friends. I had fever for 3 days, body aches for 4. And then I was fine. And I was actually surprised. I was like, how the fuck I'm fine? Like everybody's like, I watch TV and Chris Cuomo, who's like a buff guy. He's like, I'm dying. I think that was a psyop actually.
Oh, for sure. Him in the basement. He came out the basement like, hey, I'm okay now. That was amazing.
And they were like, and then I don't know who was Tucker, I think, showed it like the pictures of him like walking into his building with no mask on. Like it was just like, I mean, I have my opinions on on his brother, on the governor of New York. I think that they're throwing him under the bus. I think that what's happening right now is that we have an expertise problem in this country, and like our experts fucked up royally, like Fauci and all of them. Like Fauci at first told people not to wear a mask, and then he's like, there was a shortage of masks, so we didn't trust you. Pros was like using the information in the right way. So
it's so funny. They didn't even cover that up. They're just like, yeah, we didn't tell you because we didn't want to cause a panic because you're too dumb to handle this properly.
Yeah, because
like,
you're a bunch of fucking cows. Bunch of fucking cows. We're just gonna we have the pandemic. We have so little fucking faith in your ability to change or be in control that we're just gonna start telling you that being a fat ass is actually fine and good. So that you just like don't have so that you don't get too stressed and then like ruin the meat of the steak. Right? Like
chop you up.
Yeah. Too much stress spoils that adrenochrome.
And then do you guys remember when de Blasio was like just gathering crowds? I was bartending back then, and I was I was like reading social media, and I was seeing the videos like from China, like people are falling down on the street. I don't know what that was about, but in any case, and I was like terrified back then. And I remember de Blasio was like, just fine, just go to Broadway, just gather, you'll be fine. And if you don't want to do it, you're racist against Chinese people. And like,
oh, wasn't wearing masks racist for a while? That was racist, right? Like,
yeah, it was. But I used to live in Chinese neighborhood, like in Bensonhurst. So all the Chinese people in my neighborhood were wearing masks early in January. So I was like, something is up, something is going to happen. And I was wearing like N95 on a train. People were laughing at me. They thought I was crazy. And it was just, and then Fauci switched. He was like, okay, wear a mask. And then he was like, his opinions changed. Like, I feel like our experts fucked up royally. And I feel like our elite class is unworthy. Like, we don't have smart people actually creating policy or running things, right? We have just like ass kissers or people who are like got there because of nepotism or something, being in charge of policy, and they don't want to throw them under the bus. So they did that to Cuomo. And I feel like he fucked up too. He fucked up royally. Obviously, what he did was awful, but he also he used the information that was given to him, right? Like the experts said that it was airborne Ebola, everybody was going to die, young people are going to die. So it's like, okay, let's sacrifice grandma. And, now they're, yeah.
I'm sorry, just let's sacrifice grandma is just like never not going to be funny sounding to me.
Yeah. Are you trying to kill grandma? Like, are you not wearing a mask? You're trying to kill grandma, right? So, and now like they throw in this, I'm sorry, like I remember I was on TikTok in the beginning of pandemic, like every Zoomer girl was obsessed with Cuomo. They all had like daddy issues and they were like posting the videos of him and they were like, he's so hot. And now like he's gross and old, whatever. But they will never throw someone like Fauci under the bus because we already have like our institutions are legitimate. Like people don't trust media. People don't really like their government. The only people who have any weight in the society are scientists, people still trust science, whatever. And that's why Cuomo is a convenient scapegoat. He's just some governor from New York. But if we were being honest, it's experts who fucked up. They told us everything that was wrong. And even like WHO, do you guys remember that video of like one of the doctors at WHO? And the interviewer she was Taiwanese, I think, and she asked something about Taiwan. And he was like, okay, I'm stopping the interview. I was like, who are you who is paying you?
I don't think I saw that one.
Yeah, it was like a WHO doctor, and they were talking about the pandemic, and they were like, listen, Taiwan actually handled it perfectly, right? They closed down early. They don't have like high transmission rates. They're doing fine. And it was like, you can't mention Taiwan. And he just like stopped the interview. I was like, what?
Yeah, I feel like even the libs are kind of mad at Fauci now for I'm sure for different reasons than us, but like
she's a fucking moron.
I don't know. I think the libs are mad that Fauci wasn't more invested in the lib pandemic or he was too lax about it. I think I've heard that argument that he was like, I don't know, but the mask thing, like him flipping on the mask and being like, yeah, I've blatantly pivoted within like months. It's not even a year that he pivoted on that.
Because I think you guys are fucking morons. That's basically what it was.
Exactly. And the libs they just repeat it to me. Like they say it to my face, like blank face. They're just like, yeah, well, now it's different now because of this. And it's like, yeah, the Cuomo thing too. Like, yeah, he was hot and then all of a sudden he's a predator. Like they just pivot and like they don't, there's no continuity. They're just like, well, this is the new reality now. Like, that's just it. Like this, it's very bizarre. It's really weird. But like,
one of the accusations against Cuomo was like he asked one of the girls who was working for him if she had a boyfriend. That was basically a sexual accusation against him. I'm like, are you guys fucking serious? What's going on?
You guys saw Julia Salazar? She her MeToo thing is that someone said she looked like a Bond girl. Yeah. Somebody at her office said, you look like a Bond girl. You could be a Bond girl or something.
And that was it. That was her Me Too.
That was it. Yeah. That was.
Dude, it's some diminishing returns if I ever saw them.
For sure. Sure.
Young girls, like, if you want to be a girl boss, just go ahead and just be like Kamala. Just like use your sexuality to your advantage. Like, I have huge respect for her for doing it. Like, if you have to suck dick to get where you want to get, just do it.
Oh, right. Because she did. Who's that guy that she was supposed to be with?
Willie Brown.
Willie Brown. Right. Hey, bag chasing. Gotta respect it.
I honestly, like, why wouldn't you use your, like, I worked in a lot of places and I would not get yelled at for something, and my coworker who is a man would get yelled for half of the shit I could get away with. I'm not even joking. Like, use your sexuality to your advantage. It's real power. Okay, men buy you gifts. They take you to expensive vacations.
Shit, I would milk that shit. I would milk the fuck out of that shit for real. If I was
young girls are not even encouraged to do it. It's like somebody looks at you the wrong way, sexual harasser. I'm like, you've never had a boss that had a crush on you? They'll let you do anything.
It's a complaint if it doesn't work out. If it works out, then there's nothing to be said. But only if it doesn't work out, then there's.
But even people who are getting attention, like Harvey Weinstein's story. Like, there were a lot of working class people he abused the shit of, right? Like, there was a girl, the Filipino model. She was a waitress. He was like, "Can I touch your boob?" She recorded it. She sent it to NYPD. They didn't listen because he had too much power. Those are women I feel bad for. Do I feel bad for Jennifer Lawrence? Like, who got millions out of it. Right. She makes $20 million per movie. She got an Oscar she didn't deserve because she sucked the right dick. And like, am I supposed to feel bad about those women? I'm sorry, but even the victims, the right victims never get attention. Those are people whose voices are silenced. It's always women with power.
Yeah. If some woman's getting harassed at McDonald's, nobody gives a shit. Nobody gives a shit if she's
some
getting
working class mom who has to keep her job because she has 3 kids to feed. Those women never get attention. It's always like some rich, privileged actress who like has everything that you can dream of. And she's like, "Oh my God, he looked at me the wrong way. I was sexually harassed. My life is destroyed. I have a $20 million home I have to go back to." Like, really?
Yeah, it's the same thing with black trans women's like you hear the complaints from the grievances from the richest people, the celebs. Like, that's who you hear it from. You don't hear it from anybody normal. It's always like, all right, if you're a celebrity or wealthy, then we got to hear about the grievances of your, identity group. But nobody else. Like, that's how it always is. It's
just a way to everything. It's just a way to milk system and get like some stuff from people because you're already in that class. It's never actually to help people who are struggling or like poor black people who are like getting harassed by the cops or whatever. It's always like for people who, like some I don't know, Joy Reid on NBC, whatever, MSNBC.
Right.
Oh, that woman is crazy.
Oh yeah, for sure. I used to watch that shit just to keep my ear to what they, the psyops or whatever. But I can't even listen to any of that anymore.
They were like, DeSantis from Florida is killing people. I'm like, have you looked at the numbers? Like, Florida is a state with the second highest number of seniors, and they're pretty low on the mortality rate. Like, he handled the shit. I'm not a fan of DeSantis. A lot of right wingers like want him to be the nominee in 2024. Like, I think he's like a libertarian on economic issues. I don't know what the fuck he thinks about foreign policy. Really? Yeah, he's pretty libertarian on economic issues. He's going to be like basic bitch conservative if he ever wins primary. But I think he's going to win primary.
Right. We were talking about him on the live stream last time. Like, he's against lockdowns, which is good. Very good. Yeah. Very based. But I don't know much else besides that about him. But I heard he's like floated for like 2024.
Poverty is like a moral failure. So I would not like be able to vote for somebody just because he sticks it to the right people. Okay, he handled the pandemic very well. And, just basically like a Italian Trump. But I'm more of a Hawley person, but I don't think he can win the primary. I think he's too patrician and waspy to ever win a Republican primary. They look at him and they see like a skinny guy with like no facial hair, and they're like, no. We're not going to vote.
Yeah, because I don't know much about Hawley. I don't know if SLAV and CUH know more, but like I remember, you've been saying that Hawley's the one. Like, what about him? For somebody who doesn't like, how do you Hawley pill someone? Like, what do you think is like the best pitch for him? Like,
they did a political profile on him. Like, their main thing was like he refused to lap dance when he was in college, when he was in Stanford. I was like, okay, so you can't. You can't be too sexual, then you're a sexual harasser. But if you refuse to lap dance, you're too prudish. So which one is it? Like,
wait, they tried to cancel him for that? For not getting
They were like, oh, he's too prudish. And then like he had a poster with some guy with a baby in his college dorm. And they're like, oh my God, he's gay. Like, he has a picture of a handsome man with a baby.
He's not supporting sex workers.
Yeah, or something like that. Yeah, he's too prudish. I'm like, so okay, he never sexually harassed anybody. So you're trying to cancel him for being too prudish. So they did a political profile on him, and they basically said that like even in college he was like never a Reagan guy, right? He was never like a Reagan Republican. He was more of a Teddy Roosevelt guy. And I think he's like paleoconservative, and I think that's a pretty sound ideology. And I do think he cares about working people in his own way, even if it's cynical. Like, why do you give, like, when it's like somebody who's on the left or like a liberal, and you give them the benefit of the doubt, even though they might be cynical, but if it's Holly, like he can't have that benefit of the doubt. He's like, oh, it's cynical. He doesn't care about working people. He was the only guy with Sanders fighting for $2,000 checks, right? When it was not very popular.
Oh, right. True. Yeah. The cynical thing, who cares? I mean, that's like the good old boys pills. Like, it doesn't matter if he's cynical. As long as you get the money, you get something in return. Who gives a fuck what his motives are? Like, they're
not my friends. They're not somebody I'm going to go to bed with. Although it's Holly, I kind of think he's hot. But anyway.
Well, this is like what everybody. I was like just having like a discussion with somebody the other day about like Tucker, and them just being like, well, like he just doesn't mean the stuff he says, and it's like saying that. Well, no, exactly. It's like that implies that there are journalists or people that do like broadcast television reporting that like are genuine, right? And that their honesty and their authenticity means that you should like listen to them. And like that's just not really how it works, right? Like the motherfucker worked for MSNBC in the past, right? Like it's just whoever he's working for. And it's more just like it's completely conditional whether or not he's saying something that like I think has any value or not, right? Like
absolutely. And also with Tucker, like I watched his interview with Dave Rubin. I don't like Dave Rubin, just full disclosure.
He's a fucking moron.
Yeah,
he's a fucking moron. But he was on Dave Rubin, and he never claims to be something he's not. He's like, yeah, I grew up in a pretty like wealthy family, you know, I'm a trust fund baby, but he's like, I'm not anti-elitist. He's like, I'm not someone who comes up and says, he's not a Marxist or he's not like a working class hero or anything. He's like, I want elites who do better. Like, he's like, there was the kind of concept of noblesse oblige before, like where elites kind of owed something to people they actually shared the country with, you know, and they at least were patriotic. Like nowadays, the elites are like, they're global, right? They don't care about people they share the country with. If they have an opportunity to move the factory to China and make pay less to workers, they'll do it. No problems. They don't care what happens to some worker in Michigan or Pennsylvania or whatever, in like Rust Belt. And he wants elites to do better. He never claims to be a working class hero or somebody he's gonna be a class traitor. You know, he just wants his own class to do better. And I think for now, it's good enough.
Sure. I mean, like, I think like a Trump or a Howley or whoever, you know, if they give you something right there in government, they can tangibly give you something. If you're in media like Carlson or whatever, who I'm more critical of, what you're not giving anybody anything, right? Tangible. All you're doing is the takes, right? So I just need good takes. I'm not saying he's got bad takes, but you know, I need it when it counts, right? Like the Trump thing, he kind of left him for dead, right? In the final moments or whatever. Like that's not good enough for me. Like, yeah,
I mean, sometimes he says the cool thing. I get the video clip. I tweet it.
Sure, of course. Yeah, of course. Yeah. What was that meme you had? The COH of the low end of the IQ.
Yeah, it's the bell curve, and it's just I like when he wears the bow tie.
Right. And the high end. Yeah. I'm cynical of Tucker. I don't trust what he says, but I think the basis of that is like when there's a moment like that of like they're clearly rigging it. I in those moments I need you to say it. I mean, that's your whole job, is to give takes.
Yeah, I was very annoyed at him when he was like there was no like cheating going on, because every state.
Did he actually say that?
He was very cynical of the whole, like it was very dismissive of the whole thing.
I was not aware of that. Oh, he was okay. Sure.
Well, to be fair, he was wish-washy. He didn't hardline anything, but he was very. He didn't take a strong stand. And you're right.
Well, of course, because he's got an incentive not to, right?
I knew you were gonna. Yeah, exactly. And you're right. You're totally right. He's not in a position, or he doesn't have any incentive to say that, even if he does believe that. But
yeah, I mean, that's the bare minimum you need to acknowledge to be able to keep operating.
Right. The first question you need to ask when you talk about like the election that happened is like, how the fuck does he want Ohio by 8 points and Florida by the higher percentage than the last time, and he lost all 3 other Midwestern states? Like, it doesn't make sense. you know, and every state that reported the number of mail-in ballots first, like, okay, we have like, okay, 200,000 mail-in ballots. This is what the number is, right? He actually ended up winning those states. And like, they were not infinite like pool of like ballots they could pull from, right? Like if Biden is losing, we can just add 200,000 ballots more or whatever. And they're like, why did he win? Like, let's say, why did he lose suburbs? Like, I can, like, it's kind of explainable too, because like liberal white women are like, you know, just they don't like Republicans anymore.
They're a dirge.
No, absolutely. Absolutely.
They're menace. They're menace to the society. Like, seriously. Yeah. But in any case, like, okay, so how do you win Ohio by 8 points? It wasn't 1 point, 2 points like Pennsylvania, Michigan, and the rest. It was 8 points. You won Ohio by 8 points, and you lose all other three. Like, it just like demographic are not different, you know, like Michigan and Ohio have similar demographics. How the fuck does that happen?
No, it's not debatable to me. I mean, you know, I've never seen an election like that. Just votes in the middle of the night. And like Georgia managed
to report the results of 2 senatorial races later in like one night, but it took them like 2 weeks to report the presidential race. Oh yeah, all that shit. North Carolina, all that shit. Oh, we need a week, you know, to count these, and everywhere that had mail-in ballot votes is like the key parts that needed to turn. Like it's a joke. It's a big joke. I don't take anyone serious that doesn't know that it's a joke.
It's like, it's one of these things where like I like, there's so many more people that have like on both of like the in favor of rigging, against rigging. There's so many people that have more, you know, fine tooth information than I do. But like, it's just clear as day to me, because I remember how fucking delicious the liberal cope was on election night of everyone going to bed thinking that had happened, and then like people don't even acknowledge that. People don't even acknowledge like that 5 hour window of like, oh my god. And you guys remember how they were choosing to update like the Google tracking? Like if you looked up the results on like Google, they were like selectively not updating certain states that was contradicting other outlets, and like it was just so obvious all the way down.
Fox News reported like Arizona like as a win for Biden when it was so close. There was no fucking way they could have known he would have won Arizona, and they were like seconds later he wins Arizona. It was just basically a way to like humiliate Trump voters, right? Like, oh, he lost Arizona. And it was and they censored everybody in real time that said anything. Like, we all watched it. Like, I've never seen anything like that. And I mean, look, if you're innocent and you're not doing anything, that's I don't know. It's pretty damning just to see that. I mean, like, it's I don't know. It's look
not
at
debatable.
Florida, like they managed it perfectly. They said how many mail-in ballots there were in the beginning. They were like, we have so many mail-in ballots. They reported the mail-in ballots first, and then they were like, okay, this is what happened on election night, and he won that easily. Like he actually won Florida by a higher percentage than in 2016, and every
more minority votes and all that. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, those are not minorities. They're not politically black or brown. Okay?
Right.
They're politically white. Everybody who voted for Trump, even if you're Latino or Native American or whatever.
That whole election night has been memory hold, but that shit, like that, it really was amazing. Like the was it the 1619 Project woman being like, yeah, they're not really Hispanic because they're white Hispanic.
And at first they were saying it's only Cubans, right? Like because Cubans, because their politics, they're not really brown, whatever. Okay, and then it just happened that in Texas, for example, right, there's a Star County that is like 98% Latino, and it went for Trump, and they couldn't explain that away, so they're like, okay, they're politically white, so they don't count as well, like Mexicans.
Which is also funny because, like, again, like me, I'm just a petty monster. Like, I see that, and it's just like, that's so much fucking resources spent over the last 4 years making like shitty fucking TV shows that no one watches, or like movies, and just playing up the Hispanic demographic just down the fucking toilet in like a window of 8 hours. And it's just beautiful. It's just beautiful. You know what I mean? It's just like watching someone's house burn down.
They're trying to do reverse patriarchy.
And the Latinos actually preferred Bernie over Biden and Bernie over Hillary as well. They're just like politically inconvenient demographic. That's why Biden is not really stopping the kids in cages thing, right? He's like, oh, they're not going to vote for me anyway, so just let me keep them in cages for now.
He's like, yeah, we just got the election data back. Whatever, fuck it. Separate them from their families.
Right.
Right.
We
They voted for Trump.
We can shave this demo off. Who really cares? We're gonna keep doing what we're doing.
But even like how blatant that was, the reporting about like kids in cages. First of all, that was Obama era policy. And I don't agree with it. Obviously, you know, like kids should not be in cages, but whatever. But like at least report it like with some, like, I don't know, just even handedly, right? And what happened was there's still kids in cages, even like probably worse than it was under Trump. And they're like, oh, well, just it's different now. And AOC is like, you shouldn't do it. Like before, she would call Trump a Nazi for the same thing. And she's like just complaining like on Twitter that Biden is just, you know, doing the same thing.
And she's getting mad at people for pointing it out. She's like, listen, it's not the same exactly. It's not the exact same. It's families.
Because we do it with kindness. We do it with compassion. You know, like all those cages are filled with our compassion. That's why it's different.
Built with
is the Melania Trump. There's like some meme where she's just like quoted as saying like, where was they when Obama was doing this? Like, like she's just asking like, you know, how come there's all this heat now? But, you know, if Obama does it, nobody cares. Like
even
for a bunch
like,
of shit.
Okay, the way they reported, like Melania was obviously the hottest first lady we ever had. And like she's the best dressed. And they're like, now they never had her on cover of any magazine. Like, right, like she's a model. She's beautiful. She dresses amazingly. She's stylish, you know. And then they're like, Jill Biden is a new fashion icon. And,
oh my God.
These like pantyhose that look all
dude. Yeah. Oh my God. Yo, that shit killed me, dude. That shit made me want to fucking cut my eyes out.
They had an article recently where they were like, she's bringing sexy back for 60-year-old women. I'm like,
wait, dude, what?
Like,
can you guys send a pic?
I'll send it to you, Slav. That shit is amazing.
Yeah. I need this for research.
Her like crazy ass skin is like hanging out of the fishnets.
Do you have like a grandma fetish or something?
Oh my God.
I mean, maybe. I mean, we're not supposed to point those things out anymore. That's very reactionary.
Well, yeah, it's like the Cuomo sexual. Remember they said Fauci was a sex symbol. Do you remember that headline? There was that headline.
They say that about fucking everybody. It's so fucking weird.
Yeah.
Remember, why do they need to make
Robert Mueller was a sex symbol?
Oh yeah. I'm sexually attracted to people that completely choke and get nothing done.
Liberal white women only get attention from their husbands when they offer anal or a threesome. So like that's why you know, whenever they see somebody like remotely attractive, they just all get wet and their legs start shaking or whatever. So.
Dude, it's just so fucking like I don't understand why like these people don't have like normal sexual drives and sexualities. It's like neuroses, and they need to impose it on everything. And it's like shit that we share, right? Like these like public figures, they need to just like insist on bringing this personal part of them out. And oh yeah, no thanks.
I think it's a narcissist. It's a culture. Like I don't know if you guys read like Lack.
I'm looking at the picture. This is horrible.
Yeah, I'm sorry, King.
But I feel like it's a current culture. Like millennials have access to sex. Like you can basically get sex anywhere. You go on Tinder, you go to like a local bar, and you're gonna find somebody who you're gonna fuck, right? But we're having less sex than boomers,
right?
Exactly. And it's because sex it's all about technicality now. It's not about like the feelings you have for your partner, you know, the connection that you share. It's all about technicality. It's like how many crazy positions you can do like in 15 minutes. And like how many crazy positions you can do in 15 minutes, like and that's what they made sex about. And that's why, you know, people just like fuck and then they feel empty and they don't want to do it. They're like, I would just rather jerk off or watch porn or whatever, you know. And it's a
gimmick. It's like a gimmick.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's just, and even the pandemic stuff, like I was talking about it recently to someone. I was like, it's just like the culture doesn't care about the continuity of life on Earth, right? Like we don't care about what happens to people who come after us, right? Like in a way, like it's only the obsession with we're obsessed with ourselves, right? Like we realize that we're mortal, that the secular society, that's just the natural consequence of it. Like we know we're gonna die one day. There's nothing out there. Nobody believes in God anymore, and you're so obsessed with your own life and health and youth that's why we overreacted to Corona in such like terrible way.
Well, yeah, you were saying too earlier the long COVID thing was something that it's just been funny in general. And then you were saying how it's like a white woman thing. Like it really is.
White women are very innovative. Okay, they created so many fake diseases.
Speak on it. Fibromyalgia ass. What the fuck?
Hold on. Excuse me. My mother suffers from restless leg syndrome, and I will not take any of this.
I forgot about that shit.
I remember when I was gonna get my boobs done, I was like researching it, and like a bunch of articles by like white women would pop up, like, oh, I got my boobs done, and like I have this condition, like a thyroid condition, and the doctor's like, you had thyroid condition before you had your boobs done. The reason why you feel that way isn't because you have something in your body, and it's just like every day there's a new disease. And it's just, it's ridiculous.
Psychosomatic. Yeah. What was it? The New York Times article where it's like, oh, the vaccine made my long COVID, made my cells go kerflooey. And all of a sudden it just went away. You never seen that? You never seen that?
You're stealing COH's bit of talking like an old man.
Dude, it's in New York Times. No, dude, I'm dead ass serious. It's in New York Times health section. They had the word kerflooey. I'm not kidding.
Shit.
I'll find it for you. But I'm not
These
kidding.
These motherfuckers talking like Antonin Scalia.
Yeah. R.I.P. to the GOAT. But yeah.
God rest his soul. He'd roll in his grave if he could hear these people talking today, dude.
Jiggery pokery, right?
I mean, by the way, Clarence Thomas is not black. He's not politically black. He's a white man on the Supreme Court.
He's my dad.
He had reversed Michael Jackson.
He actually had a very good opinion recently about like tech, and he was like, "This is, it should be treated as utility because if you can change the outcome of election with social media, they should be treated as utility. It doesn't matter that they're enterprises."
That's some pretty basic like entry level populist politics opinion right there. Like that's some Joe Rogan shit for real.
Right. Yeah.
I like it.
But it's radical. It's radical.
A step in the right direction, I mean, at least. But like geez.
No, he was pretty based during the election too. Him and I think Neil Gorsuch were the one who wanted to challenge the results of the election. But obviously we have women on the Supreme. I remember every conservative was very excited about that Catholic chick, what's her name? Amy Coney Barrett, whatever. And they're like, oh my God, she's going to be so based. I'm like, she's a woman. She's not going to be based. She's going to cave into... No, I feel like if you're a Republican and you want like a base woman, you should only support the crazy ones. Those are the ones who are not going to abandon you. They're going to like stick to their guts and do what has to be done.
So what do you think of Marjorie Taylor Greene then?
Yeah, that's the type of woman. That's the type of woman you should support if you're a Republican, because those are the ones who don't have liberal friends who are going to like pressure them and call them names, and and they're not going to cave to them, right? Like
she's trying to get Maxine Waters expelled from Congress right now. That's pretty big.
Well, that's the latest thing that all these sickos are doing is just trying to kick each other out of Congress.
Redoing impeachments for everybody.
Don't you know, like AOC almost like had to like flee for her life, even though she wasn't even in the same building as she was 2 blocks away. You kind of have to take that seriously.
And then she texts, "I'm okay."
I'm okay. I'm alive. By the way, do you guys think she's hot?
Oh my God, we revisit this every episode.
Yeah, this is a trap.
We're already on record.
I think you guys should you guys have very low standards. Like I worked as a bartender in New York.
That's what everybody says.
Jack said that.
Have you seen the Latinas that work as bartenders in New York? They're fucking tense. Okay,
she's not hot. Okay, she's not. I renounce every time that I've said she's hot when I was young. I renounce every time I jerked off to her. I'm sorry. Okay, it was
you did. That's violence. That's violence. How could you say that?
No, I never did. But her personality is like it's too like
it's grainy. It's like granular.
She'll lecture you about.
We're sensitive boys. We care about what's on the inside, and she's got an ugly personality.
Yeah,
that's what we're saying.
I'm getting dead fish vibes. I'm very sensitive, and I'm getting dead fish.
No, she'll lecture you on your white privilege while you're like fucking her and from behind. So
yeah,
that's the type of person she is. But
I am open to trying that. Is what I'm saying. I am. My mother raised me to harbor a lot of guilt everywhere I go, and I think that this could be something worth trying for me.
Yeah,
didn't she claim like didn't she claim like every identity under the sun? She's like, I'm Native, I'm like Jewish, I'm this. I'm
the Jewish thing. I forgot about that.
If she did like a DNA test, I promise you would come back like 90% European or something. It's just like,
well, there's gonna be a Warren moment because Warren did that DNA test, and I feel like AOC, if somebody presses her hard enough on it, that's all you gotta do is press her hard enough to do it.
Her ancestors were Spanish conquistadors who were raping their way through Latin America or whatever. So, she feels a lot of guilt over it. That's why it manifests itself in weird ways. But yeah.
Right.
And didn't she say something recently? She was like social, like class reductionist or something. They don't understand the struggle that brown people have to go through. I'm like, what struggle did you have?
She mentioned class reductionism. She actually said
she
it.
dropped your tag, CRK.
Yo, what? Damn! I told you I got the heat on her. I told you she's feeling the pressure. She's got.
We say that, and then someday she like actually calls out Fedpost by name, and we're all just like murdered, and we're all murdered and beheaded.
I'm going to
500 plus on the Patreon after that. It's tight.
No, that's Chapo money right there.
Yeah, for real, straight up.
I'm going to run against her, and I'm going to rebrand myself as a QAnon mom or something. And
you
just
should.
You
should, honestly.
I'm gonna like bartender violence or something, and just
exactly. I did it too. Do you see her tweet where she was like, all bartender Republicans play hard, but they'd be the ones crying in the walk-in fridge.
That's
if they
her
were working
experience.
a double shift. Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's her experience, I guess. I don't know. She's just, and I was hopeful about her when she ran. I mean,
sure.
I think that Bernie movement, I feel like in 2016, I supported Bernie in 2016. I actually volunteered for him. I was in Brooklyn College back then, and he went there. So it was like we were very excited that alumni is going to run for president, whatever. And then I just the people I volunteered with, bro, they were fucking, I was like, and I'm not even American in that sense. I moved here when I was 19. So for me, it was like, what is this? What are they talking about? Can somebody translate this to me? Yeah, it was just nuts. And
that's what I imagine. Yeah.
And I was like, I know he's going to lose because his movement unleashed a lot of crazy because there were a lot of really dumb people who were the loudest and they got the microphone and and that's why it unleashed so many crazy people. And then in 2020, I knew he wasn't serious because if you want to run for president, what you do is you court Clyburn for 4 years. Right, the good old boys. The good old boys talk about it too. You court Clyburn for 4 years because South Carolina is the key. You have a problem with the black vote. The key to that vote is Clyburn. You don't invite, what's his name, the fake black guy, Sean King.
Sean White, yeah.
Yeah, you don't invite him on stage. That's not how you get the black vote. You court Clyburn. You get politically involved. He wasn't a serious candidate. He was never serious about.
He had no intention of winning. I mean, he wanted Warren. He wanted Warren to run. He begged her to run in 2016 and only ran because she didn't. So. He had no intention of winning.
I'm sorry. Do you guys remember how she staged that thing when he wanted to shake her hand and she refused?
Yeah. Oh my God. And CNN delayed the audio for a day, and they're like, "We now have the audio," and it's just People are like, "Whoa,
it was so
she's
cynical.
A misogynist." Yeah.
And he's such a cock. I'm sure, he's friends with her right now. I'm like, that woman stabbed you in the back. She treated you like a leper. What are you doing? I lost all the remaining respect.
Well, Liz just wanted me to do better, and I have to respect that.
Bernie's legacy is the mittens. That's what we have left. I supported this fucking prick, and I was suckered into it, and the legacy of that is the fucking mittens on Inauguration Day. It's really what we've got left.
Oh my god! I mean,
that's really what it is.
Honestly, like before 2016, I liked Liz because she was like outspoken and blah blah blah. I was like, okay, she's kind of cool. She speaks out against CPP.
Yeah, it's slim pickings. It's slim pickings in government. So yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, she was like one of the, because Obama wanted to shove CPP down our throats, and I remember I was reading about that deal and ISDS provision and how it would just basically empower corporations in a way that we like couldn't even imagine. Like they would have like a public they wouldn't even they could sue the governments if the corporations could sue the governments if they thought that we were infringing upon their rights. It was like a scary fucking deal. Okay, that was like and I remember she was speaking out against it. She was outlining what was wrong in that deal. I was like, okay, she's kind of nice, she's kind of cool. But then like in 2020, when like you accuse Bernie of being sexist, knowing that that's what the liberals are going to hit them on, like what? Like anybody who was
unreal.
I forgot about that stage moment, the handshake thing. That was such a big deal, man. That was like, it was so weird too, like the way it happened, and then like the press ran with it, and then the next day they had the audio. Like it was so like staged. It was very.
By the way,
surreal.
They stole Iowa for Bernie for sure. Like that.
I believe that. I hate Bernie, and I think he's a cuck. But honestly, I do believe that. I do believe that happened.
Yeah, but, they stole and the thing is, like in 2016, he was like, he was basically a class reductionist. Right? He always talked about class and how they're like poor people everywhere, and we should help them.
Open borders. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he was more like traditional, like old.
Oh, do you guys
labor.
remember Ezra Klein calling him like a racist or something for being like against open borders? He's like, how dare you talk about like open borders like affecting wages? I'm like, yeah, that's basic supply and demand thing, Like
his answer was pretty funny when Ezra Klein interviewed him on Vox. He's just like, open borders. This is a Koch brothers proposal. That's some globalist shit.
It is what libertarians. It is what libertarians want, because the whole idea is that the more you have you have a limited labor supply, you don't even have to have a welfare state, right? Like you can just keep inviting people in, while and then just it will completely decimate welfare state. And that's a libertarian proposal. I don't know why the left is on board with it. I mean, I can get behind the argument that like our policies kind of decimated like places like Mexico, like NAFTA, for example. It was very bad for Mexican farmers. Like it completely decimated small farming in Mexico, and they were forced out of farming, and a lot of people got into crime. It completely it affected them in really bad ways. But the way they talk about it in immigration, it's like the rights of workers in America are never even acknowledged.
Yeah. I mean, it's one of those things where, I mean, like SLAV has said this before too. It's like, you're kind of between a rock and a hard place. Like, do I want these people to get screwed and just fuck them because they're immigrants? No, I don't feel that way. But obviously, open borders is fucking insane. Like, obviously, it's fucking retarded. Yeah. Like, who the fuck would
the way
be
you
for
counter that is just to stop fucking over the places that they're from. Like, stop doing imperialistic wars, stop being like world police, and also stop letting our fucking industries ship themselves out to where there's a cheaper labor force. They can pay less money and then destabilizing it.
Right.
Yeah, and it's not even American workers doing that shit. It's like our elite class, and American workers being blamed for it. It's like I'm working at some factory, right? Like making like $25 an hour. I'm not responsible for whatever the fuck you idiots done to those countries, right? Like, why are you punishing me?
Right.
It's just it's fucking ridiculous, and it's never even discussed. I've never heard, like, I'm an immigrant myself, so obviously I'm not anti-immigrant or anything. I came here like at 19. This country was very welcoming for me, and every time I hear that this is like the worst place to live in, I'm like, no, Americans are pretty nice people. They are. It's just I grew up. I was an Armenian kid growing up in Azerbaijan after pogroms, and it was just like it was terrible. So I do feel very thankful for Americans for like welcoming me in the same way, right? Like you can be from anywhere and come here and still feel like you belong. You can adapt American identity. But that's never gets mentioned. It's like, there's a reason why Europe cannot assimilate its immigrants the same way that America can. Even children of immigrants who say they hate America, they're like the most assimilated immigrant you can imagine.
Yeah, it doesn't take long. It doesn't take. Yeah, everybody I've known, like in my past that have like come from other countries, like it's pretty fast how the assimilation happens. It's just it's a nice country. It's just like it has its problems, but it's still a very welcoming place. Yeah, it's like the BLM thing and the MeToo thing. It's like they're not for open borders because they care about immigrants. They want cheap labor. They don't give a fuck about those people. Like it's just another misdirection.
And who is in favor of that? Like Amazon or whatever, like big tech. They can pay somebody like in India to work for half of what they would pay American student. It's just the way it is. And unless those realities are acknowledged, and we have such a huge problem with unemployment for young people. Young people can't get jobs. They can't fucking get housing. Like millennials are like, I think somebody posted it on Twitter that millennials own like 1/3 of what boomers and Generation X owns. It's just like, it's crazy.
Oh yeah, we're fucked. And I mean, the money that, the cost of living has gone up. Your money is worth like a fraction of what it was then. So everything. Dude,
even in the past like 6 months, like the price of housing, like if you want to buy a new home, has gone up like 10 to 13% across the board. That's fucking nuts. Like over the course of 6 months.
Yeah, and it's going to manifest itself in very ugly ways. Like, millennials don't know why they're getting fucked. So they're blaming everything, they're whatever, but it's very unfair. Like, I don't know anybody my age who owns a house or something, right? I know a lot of in New York, I was looking to buy and I was like, okay.
Yeah, because everybody fled New York. So now the housing pricing is going up and all that. And like rents are kind of going down, but not really. I mean, like, it's everything's all screwed up. But yeah, the entry level you need to have to get out to.
And it's like 40% down payment if you want to buy a house. 40% down payment, and then you just slave away until you pay that house off, and by the time you pay it off, you're like 50, and you can't even enjoy it. It's like
there was a time where you could have a pretty low basic minimum wage type job, and you could cover a good amount of your living expenses. You could have a family, and you could own something. There was a time where that was.
Trads usually, when you listen to trads, they usually say it's because women entered the labor force. And, it kind of like lowered the cost of labor. But I think it's more than that.
Yeah, it's not just that. It's part of it, but it's not just. They're raising prices on things. What would you say?
Poor women were always in the labor force in the first place anyways. So like, it's just like now, like quote unquote, like these manufactured elites have entered, like females have entered the labor force. Like more middle class jobs have maybe gotten crowded, but like lower class, working class women have always been in the labor force.
Rosie the Riveter ever since World War II production, and they had.
I mean, even before that, they were working as house workers, like for rich people. And
minority women were working.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
I think PMC, like I also have a theory about why like PMC types are cheering on like, destruction of small businesses, like whatever, it's anti-kulak resentment. I feel like if you're like PMC type, you work for a corporation, like you slave yourself away and like for some soulless corporation, they really do believe that like someone like Jeff Bezos is more deserving of being a boss that some like Vietnamese immigrant who owns a restaurant. Like they do feel that, like they would never admit to it, but they do feel that like on a deeper level.
Have that meritocracy thing. Yeah, the neo-libs, they have that. It used to be a neocon thing, not a neo-lib thing, but now it's both.
Well, that's where the like ironically, that's where the like I faced a lot of adversity in my life comes from, right? Like the squeezing as much out of being a member of like a marginalized group as you possibly can, because that is like the new brand of meritocracy, really. Because at the end of the day, like it still is like, I pulled myself up by my bootstraps, right, in the face of this white supremacy that we live under the boot of, right?
Right.
Yeah. And they're like, I'm like, even though like my father's a doctor and my parent is like, like my other parent is like, work at like some financial institution, I'm more oppressed than some like immigrant who built this business, and like it doesn't matter that it gets burned like during like riots or something, or when like like the pandemic crushes them. Like 30% of small businesses in New York are never going to come back, and they just dismiss it. They're like, oh, it doesn't matter. They're like kulaks. They're like, wasn't there a guy on Twitter who said like it's good that they're getting destroyed because then we only have to fight Jeff Bezos?
Yo, I do remember that. Yeah, I'll never forget that shit. There was some leftist that was like, oh, yeah, it's better if there's monopolization because then it's easier to fight just one person when we have the communist revolution.
You're going to fight like if one person was like enormous amount of wealth. And like power and like army of people who are going to protect him versus like some small business owner who like basically invested everything he has. Like in New York is
like retarded accelerationism.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's completely
consolidation of wealth is actually good because then at some point, Daddy
thanks for setting this up.
Come out.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, perfect. We'll take this from here. Like you fucking idiot.
Everything's consolidated, and then we'll just pull out a gun and take it.
Yeah, right. And he has like our small army of robots protecting his house or whatever, and getting his dick sucked by this hot.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, they just, these guys, they had money, the old money, and that money begets more money, and then they get to raise the prices on everything that's a necessity. And here we are now, to 50 years later. It's like nobody can afford to live. I mean, they had the game set up.
The revolution is not happening. I don't know what people are thinking. Like anybody who talks about like, oh, I don't like right wingers talk about like, oh, like ethno state or whatever, and left wingers are like the communist revolution are going to come. We're going to have like the early 20th century Russia happening here. I'm like, it's not happening.
No, it's like you said about how fascism here is a joke. Like the idea of fascism here. It's the same thing with the communism thing. It's like, look, I mean, like anybody who's scared of like communism or scared of fascism, like it's a joke. It's not here. We're nowhere near that. America is nowhere near a mindset that it takes to.
We're too decadent and lazy to ever have a revolution. It's not happening here. And like the only way you can achieve some changes is by doing politics. And like every time you try to do politics, okay, like I like Harvey, right? Like I would like him to run and maybe win. And they're like, oh, but he's a fascist. He's this and that and the third. I'm like, what are you talking about? Have you ever lived under authoritarian? Like I grew up in Azerbaijan, where like the same dynasty like had power for the last 30 years. And every time you speak out, you get disappeared. So I'm like, what are you talking about when you talk about fascism? What do you even mean? Like Trump saying some mean things to like Jim Acosta or on CNN, that's not fascism.
Yeah. I mean, I think if they keep making things worse, I think there is more and more revolutionary potential. But I don't think you could look around and be like, damn, we're living under fascism under Trump, or we're living under communism. Like Pelosi's a communist, and it's about to be communism any day now. Like that's deranged shit. Like that's
but even like the way left talks about like, oh, it's like we're going to accelerate until there's a communist revolution. It's not happening. First of all, working class is socially conservative, if anything, right? They're never going to get behind somebody like AOC. If you're serious about working class politics, you will at least try to understand their cultural issues that they're concerned about, right? I'm not saying they hate gay people or black people, but a lot of working class people are just socially conservative in ways that if they say something like, if they open their mouths on any trans issue, you would call them a like fucking Nazi, right?
It's just a fact. I mean, that's something I used to be a rad lib, and this is just something I had to let go of. It's just like, look, this is where people are. So you're just going to have to, if you actually care about underclass people or, the well-being of the underclass for your own sake or whatever, I mean, that's just, well, you have to take that as a given. You can't have these like utopian standards of how people should have morals or cultural values or whatever.
And you have to talk to people on their level. You can't talk down to them because they don't agree with you on everything. If you want to change their lives, you should approach them in a way that they would understand. Like I served working class people, like I served them beer all the time. I talk to them. I know how they think, and if I want to deliver any material changes for them, I would actually try to talk to them on the same level and not try to lecture them on every way they're wrong about things or social issues, and that's what they're doing. Like AOC thinks that she can just call every poor white person in America, like accuse them of having like white privilege or whatever, and like not being not being for trans rights enough, and that will make them magically vote for you. Like, you lost the election with Bernie, like Corbyn got decimated. Like, even now I look at polling in England, in UK, and it's like Labour is polling 24 points behind Tories. Like, there's a reason for that, because you don't talk to those people at the same level. You talk down to them, and that's not going to make them vote for you.
Yeah, that top down, like, it's managerial mindset. It's just it's not conducive to anything. It really isn't. But yeah, it's funny too, because what was the other thing? You were like getting attention recently because of Glenn, right? Like, what happened with that again? It was like, I kind of missed it, but like, angry black lady, I forget what her name is, but she was like accusing Glenn of simping for you or something in your replies, because
she basically accused him of not being gay enough because he likes big boobs. No, I'm joking. Every gay man I've ever met was into big boobs. That's just a thing, okay? But anyways,
aesthetically,
just aesthetically, yeah, sure. And
see what you might have missed that. It was like Glenn Greenwald is mutuals with Monica, and like replied to something, and then the rad libs were like, "Whoa, look, this guy, he's supposed to be gay. He's supposed to have a husband, and he's here replying to e-girls."
He's just replying to somebody with the name Mommy Milkers. So I added my breast size to my name. I was like, I know my name was triggering enough for those people, so I'm just gonna add what my size is. Yeah, and she was like, he has a husband, he's rich, and he's responding to somebody with the name Mommy Milkers. And then I pulled up one of her older tweets, and she was like, I'm 47, not married. I'm going to order Amazon wish list. I'm like, it's obvious where it's coming from. Like, you're just miserable. And,
that's the best people getting mad at an ironic name. Like, when people get mad at black.com pill, like, that shit just gives me the most joy, man. I love that shit. Like, yeah, mommy milker is like, yeah, that shit is upsetting people. Like, that's beautiful.
Just make your Twitter handle as ridiculous as possible, and you're going to trigger all the right people, because, they have no sense of humor. And that's why they were so opposed to Trump, because he was funnier than they are.
Yeah,
like, he was just genuinely hilarious. By the way, I miss his Twitter so much.
Oh, for sure. It's weird though with Glenn, because like Glenn and like Amy and Tucker, like, these are people who, like, for me, it's like, look, say you don't like them or whatever, the level of like obsessive hatred they get is completely disproportionate. Like, it doesn't make any sense. Every week, Glenn and Tucker are trending. And Amy's trending among like left Twitter or whatever. Like, every fucking week, they're just on about these people, like, furious.
It's just jealousy. Like, the way they want to cancel Substack is because all the talented people left like mainstream publications to go on Substack. It's like Matt Taibbi, Glenn. I'm sure like Lee probably is going to leave Intercept at some point. It's just like a jealousy. It's just, they know they're more talented than you are, and they know that people are going to pay to read them. Like, Glenn is making enormous money on Substack. And it kills them. It kills them. They want to have this subsidized thing for like bad journalists, where like you're shitty, but like because of your like identity or whatever, we have to pay you to be like, to be a journalist and do your work.
Yeah, credentialist bullshit.
Right. Everything. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because everything's decentralizing. The same thing in the music industry. Like, now you don't need to go to these labels and the radio. You don't need to go to these big institutions as much as you needed to before.
Just have a talent
everywhere. Yeah, exactly. And now with the internet and everything, like, it's kind of diffusing.
But they're trying to cancel Substack. I don't know if they're going to be successful at achieving it. I hope not. But
how would they even do that? Like, under what grounds would they do that?
They're accusing Matt Taibbi of being a transphobe. And even though he's like to the left of like 90% of the population in America, they're like, because you're not sufficiently woke enough, they're going to cancel you.
Isn't Substack just like a platform you can use, though? It's not like they're like editing and releasing his writing, are they? It's not like it's New York Times where they have like a paid staff.
They have their own editors, as far as I know. Like, people, but they hire their own editors. Like, for example, if you're like writer writing for Substack, like, you have somebody working for you, but you pay them. I guess that's what I'm thinking, out of your own pocket. Mm-hmm. But they're like trying to cancel
for journalists,
right? Yeah, that's what it sounds like. Yeah.
I feel like Zaid Jilani and Sean Misrabian also joined Substack too, so it's gonna be interesting. It's going to be interesting if they're going to be successful at canceling it, but I hope not. It's just I don't know, because I had an argument with somebody. They're like, oh, the woke culture is going to like kind of like just like it's going to go away, but I don't see that's happening. They said the same thing when Biden was elected. They're like, when Biden comes into like all the reasonable centrists, right? Like all the I think that's a slur for me when I call somebody a reasonable centrist. But all the reasonable centrists were like, oh, just vote for Biden. Like the woke thing is going to go away. The craziness is going to go away. It only got worse.
Yeah, I remember a year ago, right before lockdown, or right around there, people were saying that like the id pool might slow down, but it's going to come back whenever the economy's bad. It's always going to spike. Whenever things are getting bad or they need a distraction, then you're going to see a million fucking hashtags for. Yeah,
but they also figured out that you can bully some people into giving you things that you want, material things that you want, just by, like constantly whining about underrepresentation or whatever. That's just a form of bullying. And a lot of those kids who have that power now, they were bullied in high school or whatever. Just like people who were bullied in the past got all the power now, and they're not going to give it up. I don't know what has to happen for them to stop. Because it's very corrosive, and like it's very bad for society in the long unless you want Yugoslavia, unless you want Balkanization, but it's just, I don't know, I guess it's where it's going to.
Yeah, a lot of these like huge, enshrined institutions are just very furious at everybody sort of, decentralizing and doing their own thing without their blessing. So
do you guys remember? Do you guys remember Lisa Milano whining on Twitter that she didn't have the same number of listeners as Joe Rogan? She was like, it's only because of sexism.
Oh, wasn't Amy Schumer doing that for Chappelle too? Like, how come Chappelle's making this much money? How come I'm not? Like,
it's like, bitch, maybe because your content's garbage.
Yeah, because you're not fucking funny. Like,
she steals jokes. She stole all her jokes from Patrice O'Neill, who was a great comedian, by the way.
Really? She stole from him? That's wild.
She stole from him. She stole from everybody, and it's just the way to.
It's the same sicko bro that had dinner with Epstein after he got arrested. Like, what the fuck?
Who was Amy Schumer?
No, my bad. I thought we were talking about Chelsea Handler for a second. I got sidetracked. They're the same broad to me.
Yeah, they're all the same. All these white women, yeah.
But they're all in the same club, and that's like their thing. They're like, we'll just bitch all together.
Right, exactly.
And Chelsea Handler's situation is even sadder because, like, she's a good-looking woman. In a normal society, she would be like a grandma, like fucking a pool boy on weekends, just like enjoying her life. And nowadays, she's just reduced to like scolding black people who are not sufficiently woke enough on Twitter. Remember when she told 50 Cent, how could you support Trump? He's so racist. He's going to kill all the black people. And I was like, what are you doing, lady?
Yeah. Who's John Legend's wife?
Chrissy Teigen.
Oh yeah, she's also another one that I just kind of lumped them all together. You know what I mean?
She's so ugly too. Like she looks like somebody smacked her in the face with a frying pan. Like it's just like.
Speak on it.
You remember after her fucking she like took a photo in the hospital because she like had a miscarriage or something. She's like posing.
Yeah, she drank her baby to death.
Oh my god, that shit is insane.
Yeah,
fake miscarriage, fake baby, fake womb. She is an MTF. It is easily detectable.
We going to
her marriage is fake too. John is obviously not into women, but anyways,
he is a woman. They're an inverted couple. Look at that dude. Look at his facial structure. Come on.
She's fucking. Right, how is that a model? I'm sorry. Like Americans need to have like better standards. Like what the fuck? Yeah, that woman is not. Yeah, just.
So you don't consider yourself white, right? Do you make a distinction between that, or how do you? I
never even like thought about my race before I came to America because I'm like basically like mixed kid. Like my mom is Russian, my dad is Armenian, so I never even thought about it that way. And and because I look exotic. Like I think it's just because Genghis Khan raped everybody in my ancestry. I'm like a rape baby, I embrace the rapist side of my ancestry. But yeah, people are like, what are you? Are you like a Filipino? Are you a Latina? Like I was like, yeah, it was weird to me for the first time in America to think about what my race was. I never thought about it that way, like it just. Armenians are treated like shit in Russia, for example, right? Like they call us like black asses or whatever. Mm-hmm. In Moscow, they wouldn't run to you if you're Armenian. They're like Slavs only, whatever.
I see. Yeah.
So for me, it was never like an issue. And I feel like America has this fixation on race, which is understandable because of history of America, like it's just,
it just goes to show how our boundaries are completely made up. Like the like where we define whiteness or blackness or whatever, it's completely made up shit. Like,
but I feel like the way to combat that, like my solution would be like a civic identity, everybody could unite around, right? Like some positive identity, even though like all those myths about America, like blah, 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 founding fathers, they're silly, but I think they're necessary because in multicultural, multiracial societies, the way to bring people around is just to have one civic identity. Like we're American, like we're one people. We have this country we share, and even that is like, you can't even say that and you're going to be called fascist. Like you can't even embrace that like melting pot idea, like a thing. It's just
Bog that's true. Yeah, even that is viewed as like a fascist thing, and like I remember Bog had mentioned.
But how are you going to build a society like this? You're going to have enclaves of people like Asians, Black people, and I don't know where me and you are going to go, but
I'm forming a Blasian ethno state. That's what I'm doing. And you guys can come.
Are we going to have what's that male model's name? He's like half Black, half Asian.
A male model?
Yeah, I forgot his name.
I don't know.
Anyways, we're gonna have Bruno Mars and like whatever.
Yeah, Miguel.
Yeah, but it's like, what are you gonna do? What kind of society are you gonna create? Just like people who are bitter at each other for like having a different identity. It's just not healthy. And that's what they're pushing. And especially like, okay, so Lebanon, for example, right? It went from like majority Christian to majority Muslim in a very short time. And they didn't handle it well. So what happened was they're very sectarian society. It's like the government has like representation for every group. It's very weird. So I feel like right now what's happening is like America is going from majority white to whatever, to multiracial society. And they're not handling it well at all. Like the last thing you want to do is to have hyper focus on identity, because that's just going to lead to more sectarianism. And that's exactly what they're doing.
We're already seeing it, with Chaz, like them separating like Black and white people, but it's like in woke ways. And like, if the white nationalists are down to, come down, take a step down, meet halfway and just do American nationalism. Hey, that works for me. We could work something out with that. Like that's more doable. I mean, just the white identity alone. Like, there's not many ways out of that.
Didn't Richard Spencer tweet something like, "Oh, I'm fully endorsing the like racialist politics of the Vokes because it's kind of like it helps my cause." And I was like, "Oh
my God, I fucking hate that guy. I fucking hate him." And
did you guys see his tits? Like, there's a picture of him. Like, his boobs are bigger than mine. I'm not even joking. I'm going to show that picture to my next search and be like, that's what I want.
Wait, was that Richard Spencer, that pic you had up? That was him?
No, that was Max Booth. Another one.
A lot of dudes out here with boobs like broads.
Yeah, for real.
I was like, this guy is very concerned about women's rights in Afghanistan. Didn't he tweet something, we can't pull out of Afghanistan because women's rights? I'm like, Afghanistan Afghanistan had a socialist government where women were wearing miniskirts. I hate to be that person, but they really were. Women's rights were far better. Like the women's issue were far better under a socialist government. And what we did was we empowered mujahideen in Afghanistan. Mm-hmm. Because we wanted to combat Soviets, which led to the rise of sectarianism there too. And then mujahideen turned into Taliban, and like some of the guys went into Al Qaeda. It's just stop. At some point, just stop. Let countries figure out their own historical course. That's what happens when you force the issues down people's throats. The natural reaction is to say, no, I don't want it.
Yep. Yeah, they need autonomy. They just need to let it happen organically, or
you need to let things play out. And even the Arab Spring thing, it wasn't natural as well. And that's why it didn't lead to anything good. It's like sectarianism all over, and they got rid of Gaddafi, our base king, whom I love.
R.I.P.
Yeah, poor guy. We came, we saw he died. Whatever. What did he?
We bombed the shit out of these people, and then we're surprised that they become fundamentalists or whatever. Well, maybe fucking stop bombing them.
And maybe they wouldn't have become fundamentalists, but because But I also feel like I have another theory on this too. I feel like what we did in the Middle East, we basically exploited the sectarian differences between like Shias and Sunnis and whatever, and we like divide and conquer. And because America is losing power, it's losing power on a global stage, so they're turning their attention inwards. And they were like, we can't do that on the same scale in the Middle East anymore. Let's just do it here. And that's what they're doing.
Yeah, I had that thought too. I was thinking like the destabilizing region strategy like that, you know, with the sectarian violence. Like they really do that here. They do that here. They don't
shit
care
like
about
shit like that on top of being like imperialistic pursuits are also just dry runs to do it here. Just like the Chicago School and shit like in Chile and South America back in the like 70s and 80s, which is prep for neoliberalism.
Yeah, because people think like, oh, because they're American elites, they'll think of Americans differently. They don't think of you differently. Like if you're just some regular underclass person in America, you're no different than somebody over abroad. Like, what do they care? You don't mean anything special just because you're American. They went
to India like back in the day when like English ruled the world, and they explored the caste differences, right? The caste system. Right. And they were like, that's how we're going to pit these people against each other, right? Like by exploiting the differences that they have, and just, you know, that's how we're going to rule. And that's what they're doing here. Because even the way they talk about police brutality, if they talked about it in like, in like a more rational sense, what they do is just they blame like poor white people for whatever's happening with police brutality in America, right? Like they're like, oh, like Chris Cuomo tweeted today. He's like, oh, white people's kids need to start dying for people to start to pay attention. I'm like, poor white people were dying for a long time from police brutality. Even your kids, like rich liberal white kids.
Yeah, as if cops don't kill white people. As if we didn't watch that white dude crawling in the hallway while that cop like AR gunned him down. Like, yeah, I mean, like it's just absurd. It's and as if there's not black cops that engage in police brutality. Like it's all a joke. It's all obfuscation. It's like it's clearly, maybe it's deeper than the racial thing. Maybe it's deeper than the cop thing. Like, you know, it's obvious.
It's a class thing. It's obviously that, like, I mean, maybe there's like issues and like maybe they treat black people worse. I agree, but it's also mostly a class thing. Like they treat poor people badly because they know they can get away with it. Like a rich black doctor living in a rich neighborhood is not going to get harassed the same way. Facts. It's just a fact.
That's just a fact. I remember I said that last summer when the BLM thing was popping off and people were getting tight at me. Like I said that on Facebook, which I should not have said. But like I was getting like people were getting tight. We saying rich people don't get, and then they'll give examples of like, oh, this rich black person was getting harassed. You know, that video that went around of that Karen that was calling a cop on somebody for like bird watching in Central Park or something. I'm like, but that guy was being kind of
creepy too. Okay, if somebody approaches my dog, I would be like, why are you getting near my dog?
Either way, but that guy is not getting gunned down and like, planted crack on him. That's not what's happening. Like, let's be real. Like, there's a difference. Like, but you can't say that.
What they're trying to say is that like Oprah has more in common with a poor black person than a poor white person in Appalachia, which is not true, obviously. Like
Oprah, yeah, exactly,
Oprah, whatever,
exactly. Yeah, and how she was saying like, if you're a white homeless person, you have privilege still. Like, yeah, and she's like a fucking gazillionaire. Yeah, exactly.
She's a gazillionaire. It's not true, and it's like that's a way to divide and conquer and like prevent any. I'm not saying that there's like class unity across the board. Obviously, like different groups of underclass people have different issues, but they're preventing any unity from happening. They're like, okay, like you can't unite with poor white person, or like you can unite with poor black person, and that's just the way they rule. That's just the way. And Jeff Bezos got so much richer during this riots because every small business, every retail store was destroyed. So everybody went to buy from Amazon, and that's how they rule.
Yeah.
Anyways, guys, I think I'm gonna get going, but it was a great conversation.
Yeah, that was great. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you for inviting me.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, thanks for coming on. Much appreciated.
Thank you for having me.
All right,
Bye.
See you.
Bye.
Peace.